This is the Bold City Podcast.
Hey, welcome to the Bold City Podcast. I'm Jason Masters, the lead pastor at Bold City Church. And I want to remind you guys that you can find us on any platform that you can find podcasts on iTunes, on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. We'd love for you to go like the video if you like it, subscribe, share with your friends if you think it'll impact them in any significant way. Today, I have an incredible friend and guest. He came all the way from Livingston, Montana, my buddy, Cody Wood.
Hey, Jason. Good to be here, man.
Good to have you here, man. So I'm glad you came. I'm glad you're here. And I really think some people are going to glean from your story. And we're going to also probably talk about what you do for a living, your family, and your favorite hobby, hunting, which is not like hunting down here.
Not a bit.
Not even close to it. So I'm excited to have this conversation. Let's give some people some backstory without making me look too bad. Why don't you tell somebody, do you remember how we met? We met in school, right?
Yeah, man. So we went to high school together, and you were one of those guys that I stayed away from. You know, we didn't do a lot of the same things necessarily. You know, I was trying my best to be on the straight and narrow.
And I definitely was not on that when we met. Far from it.
Absolutely. But man, it's awesome just how God works though, and how he takes each of our stories. You know, like I was thinking about this as we were traveling and as we were headed out here. Our stories are so different. You know, each of you walked a very different path than I did. Yet here we are. Yet God has brought us back together. He's done some incredible things in your life as you have, followed him, and as you've been able to lead this church. It's been inspiring to me. Like, I've been watching you for like last 10 years or so as you've been doing this, and man, it's incredible to me to watch.
And I appreciate that. I think it's pretty cool too to know like, hey, when we were younger, headed in two separate directions, but now it's cool that God has brought us together. And I would go as far as venturing to say that, man, you have become a trusted voice in my life too. Like, I know, like, I could call you and have a sincere, heartfelt conversation and get good, solid advice, and know that it's safe and secure when I'm talking through whatever that might be with you. So I appreciate how God does stuff like that, and that's the beauty of following Jesus. Because I don't think either one of us at 16 years old be like, hey, when we're 40, we'll be hanging out and talking.
Right. Isn't that crazy that we're 40?
Yes, and let's not spend too much time on that. That's been a hard pill to swallow for me. It's like, dang, man, I didn't even know I'd make it to 40 when I was younger, you know? But here we are. And so I thank God for that and the friends that he's brought in this season. So you being on the straight and narrow, me being far from it when we were younger, man, you left high school, and what'd you go do?
Man, so as soon as I graduated high school, well, it's actually kind of crazy. The summer after I graduated high school, I went on a mission trip to, of all places, Montana, and fell in love with it. Went to the Indian reservation, spent like it's almost 3 weeks, I think, doing missions work there, and just absolutely fell in love with Montana. And then came back here. I went to UNF, did my undergrad at UNF. But during that period of time, I really felt like God was calling me into ministry, into vocational ministry for a career. And then, so I started pursuing that. I actually was the youth pastor at Highlands Baptist Church throughout college. And then as soon as I finished up at UNF, I moved to Wake Forest, North Carolina, and went to the Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary and did my Master of Divinity degree and got that in biblical languages and in evangelism. And during that period of time, our seminary had a relationship with, of all places, the state of Montana. And they were sending church planners from our seminary to Montana. And got involved in that program and started down that path. And my family, at that time I was married and had a 10-month-old little girl. And my family and another family moved to Livingston in 2007. And we planted a church.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. Yeah. And now, having been to Montana, it really is a special place. So I could see why you would want to go there and plant a church. So graduate high school, feeling the move of God in your life to say, man, vocational ministry. Finish your undergrad at UNF, and then you pursue it, man. And first off, that takes great courage, and I appreciate that. And then you land in Montana, and then tell us, man, what was planting a church like?
Man, it was hard. Oh, it was hard. You know, I guess I wasn't really prepared for how hard it was going to be. It's not only on me, but on the family, on everybody. Because literally, we go from, I mean, I grew up in Jacksonville, right? I mean, I grew up in this large town, large city, and then I moved to Livingston, and the entire state of Montana has less people in it than the city of Jacksonville does.
Yeah.
There's not, there's there's very little Christian influence. There's very little in that area compared to here, compared to being in the Bible Belt.
Sure.
So it was very much a culture shock. Things are very different out there. And now I've been there for 16, 17 years, however long it's been now. And I'm a Montanan now. I just love it. It's a totally different culture, totally different world, but I love it. But it was really a challenge to figure out inroads into people's lives because it's a very closed community. There's a lot of people that have been there for 6, 7 generations that are just ranchers, farmers, and it's a very, very close, tight knit community. So we started doing things to really to serve the community, similar to what you guys do here at Bold City. But looks a little bit different. So one of our most successful ministries was an indoor archery league that we did in our church. So we would actually on Tuesday nights we would bring in a bunch of guys and we would shoot archery in the church, and that was
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a best ministry we did, and we created a whole archery league. We did it in the winter, whenever nothing else is going on and people are looking for things to do. And
Smart.
yeah, we would get together. We'd show hunting films on the projector system and stuff, and then we'd go down in the basement in groups of 4, and then we'd keep scores, all of that, and then we'd have a big party at the end of the season, and that was huge. That was a huge ministry for us. We did a lot of rodeo ministry, so that was fun. I ended up actually being the vice president of the Rodeo Association board of directors. It really helped.
A Florida boy.
A Florida boy. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I did the funnest part of the whole rodeo though for me was I ended up running what they call the stripping chute, which the stripping chute means something very different in rodeo
Than what it would probably mean in Jacksonville.
Right, yeah, very different. So whenever the rough stock, so like the bulls and the broncs would ride, then they have to come back and somebody has to take the saddles off of them. Somebody has to take all the rigging off of them. And that was one of my jobs. So, and we did that for the PBR as well. We did it for the PRCA rodeo.
So cool.
So yeah, some of the bulls and the broncs that you've seen on TV at the PBR, I've played with, as part of ministry, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we were able to grow the church. We got to the point we were running 2 services, and man, we really had a lot of really great things that took place. A lot of lives that were changed through our time there and through the church.
Could you maybe speak to the toll of planning a church that it took on maybe your family?
Yeah, there were a lot of mistakes I made as a church planner. A lot of mistakes, and I would say the number one mistake I made was not prioritizing my wife and children as I should have. And that's something that, for those that are listening, I mean, you're their pastor, but you know what? Most importantly, you're a husband.
Yep.
You're a dad, and the people that are a part of your church need to understand that, because if you can't be the dad and the husband that you need to be, you can never lead this church like you should.
That's right.
And so people that are part of the church, I hope that they have grace for you as their pastor, and give you what you need to be that first. and then you get to be a pastor. And I got that wrong. I got that wrong big time. I was to the point where I was working 80, 90 hours a week, never home. Somebody always needed me. And that was a problem.
Yeah. I've heard it said by a pastor before, um, just encouraging a group of us, man, do not sacrifice your family on the altar of ministry. And I've watched it happen quite a bit. And I've even as you talk about it, I'm reminded like, man, I probably went through 2 or 3 solid years where I was doing that as well, out trying to keep other people's families together, under the banner of ministry and under the banner of, man, I'm called to this while forsaking my own and not even realizing like, hey, my wife feels like she's being cheated on and the side chick is church,
Absolutely.
and not even realizing that. And it took someone else talking to us. Like we were like, you know, we need marriage counseling. We were fighting over some dumb stuff.
Yep.
And Tiffany and I went and we sat with a very dear friend of mine who is an incredible counselor, and he counsels many people within our church. We like people come to us with like, you need to go talk to him. He's great, And he was like, man, we sat through a counseling session. Then he called me after, and he was like, hey, you gotta stop cheating on your wife, bro. I was like, you know something I don't know, because I don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, no, like all this goes away when you prioritize your wife again. And so my wife is a big, like, she's calendars. She's like got calendars on calendars on calendars, right? She's got a calendar for the calendar. So meaning she calendars a time to work on calendar. It's like, it's just crazy. Like she's into that. So I just started putting her on the calendar. And so it switched something when I started doing that, because she saw herself and she felt like, oh, wow, he's a priority. And then I trained myself, and I did it in front of her. I would, when we'd be driving or going somewhere or out on a date, this thing will blow up. Like it's blowing up now while we're in the middle of shooting this. And I would go and always want to look at it and answer it. But I trained myself to go, oh, no, and just put it down right in front of her. And dude, it really shifted the game for our whole marriage, because it showed her and it taught me this. It showed her she was a priority, and I was learning to make her a priority. The other thing too that was huge, and I know I'm spending a few moments on this because in case somebody listens to this and they're there, like you might feel like the house is burning down and there might only be a few tweaks, and it's not that big of a deal. It's just, okay, dial in, get your priorities right. This 777 plan, which is, I did a whole podcast, or I spoke in a podcast about it. Every 7 days, a date night, every 7 weeks, an overnight, or maybe 2 nights where we're isolated and really focus on each other. And every 7 months, like a big trip. And with 4 kids, we have to drag kids with that. But when Tiff sees that on the calendar, and when we are in the rhythm of executing those, like, I really feel like she's my biggest advocate, man. And like, I really feel like the scripture says I have a life sustainer, not just a helpmate, but a life sustainer. And so it's huge. So if you're in ministry, I hope they listen to us. If they're in ministry, like, dude, don't build the church and destroy your family.
Yep. Well, and that's ultimately what kind of ended up happening with my situation. We ended up struggling a lot. Especially there towards, we were probably 5 years in to the process, and there was a lot going on within our family structure, some stuff that I didn't even know about, that my wife was struggling with and things, and it was hard. But we were actually sitting in a small group one time, and I'm leading the small group, and we're talking about marriage. We're talking about all that, and one of the guys, I'll never forget it. One of the guys is talking about some of the struggles that they're having within their marriage, and he goes, "Well," and I'm sure everybody here understands this, with the exception of Cody, because he doesn't struggle in his marriage. And it's like, oh, I just screwed up as a pastor. I've screwed up as a husband. Like I'm I'm not leading my people in a authentic way. Like they think that I have this all figured out, and that's far from the truth.
Mm.
And then my wife is sitting there hearing this too, and we're struggling. We're not doing well, and it man, it was kind of a hit across the forehead with a 2x4.
Dude,
Like,
can I just say this? I appreciate the authenticity of this right now. You even sharing this and making this available for people to hear.
yeah,
It's huge, dude.
yeah, you bet. And it's something that I mean, it gets worse. But you know, God is God's taking care of us through the whole process, and you know that. And I guess I've never really shared most of this story in a public fashion. Like you and I've talked about it, you know, personally, but I've never talked about this in any kind of large format. But in 2012, my wife had a major mental breakdown, out of her mind for about 3 days, completely gone. And then it turned into a couple hospitalizations within, you know, mental health, psychiatric hospitals. Long story short, she had actually been molested as a child by a guy in the church.
Oh, wow.
And that had been weighing on her since she was like 8 years old. And again, there's a lot of details to all of this, but really long story short, she ended up leaving. So, and I had an 8-year-old, 6-year-old little girls, and she left, and we ended up about 6 months later getting a divorce. And you know, I stepped away from the church prior to that, but my world just completely fell apart. And you know, there were times where, you know, we're talking about these paths that we're on, and like I think about the prodigal son story, and everybody focuses on the prodigal son. I was the brother. I wasn't the prodigal son. I was the brother. And like my world falls
Mm.
apart, and I'm like, my first reaction is like, God, I've tried to do everything right. Like I know I've screwed up along the way, but like
Sure.
I've tried to do everything right, and now my life has completely fallen apart. Like the man that I see in the mirror, I don't recognize anymore. And it's like, why did you do this to me, God? I've tried to serve you. I tried to do it the right way. And I'm here empty-handed with nothing. Like everything that I thought was valuable to me was gone at that point. And then there's another scripture that talks about that he will restore the years the locusts have eaten. And I went through a couple year period where like really struggling through, I mean, being a single dad. I mean, at that point, like the
Of two
girl
little girls,
of,
by the way. Yeah.
of two little girls. And you know what, man? I'm a really good dad. I suck at being a mom. Uh,
You got way too much facial hair, bro.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I was pretty much 100% raising them by themselves. Like their mom would see them, you know, once a month for a couple hours. But and it's still that way. I mean, they've only seen her like 2 or 3 times in the last year, for a couple hours each time. So, like, dude, like whenever Ella, my oldest, was starting to get hair on her legs, we put on our bathing suits and sat on the side of the bathtub, and I taught my daughter how to shave her legs. Right? I mean, stuff I never thought I would ever
Have to do.
have to do.
Yeah.
Right? You know, whenever my ex-wife left, my mom calls me and she's like, "Hey, you know, do I need to come out there? Do I need to come help take care of things?" I'm like, "Nope. This is the way my life is going to be, and I got to figure out how to do this by myself." And so we figured it out, and
Went to Sam's, bought a big box in there, said we're gonna work on this.
yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Oh man.
But you know what? And that's been almost 10 years ago since that happened, and now, man, God has truly restored that. You know, a year or so later, I met a wonderful woman and we ended up getting married. She's a Minnesotan, which you know about Minnesota.
Gotta be careful with them.
Hey, I know it's tricky, but no, God brought an amazing woman in my life, and she has just stepped in and has stood in the gap, and she has mothered my daughters, and she's been incredible to me, and she really is she's what God promised in Proverbs, right? That He would restore those years, and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about prioritizing my family,
Yeah.
and being redeemed.
Well, and I think your single dad time, and then God blessing you with an incredible wife as well. I think you did a pretty good job with your daughter. I mean, we hiked through the mountains of Montana, and she was basically my armor bearer. Her, not only was it like, hey, we're here to hunt a bear, but just make sure Jason doesn't die because
Right.
he's only got bear spray on him right now. So,
Oh, man, I tell you, so quick story about her. She was 14, and we had hiked in. It was below 10 degrees. It was pretty cold up at where we were.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. The snow was about knee deep. We ended up shooting a big bull elk that morning, and it's me and two buddies, and then her. And my buddies are grown men, and we cut up this elk, and we're probably 3-4 miles from the truck. We literally put a quarter of this elk in there because I've always raised them like, if you're gonna go with me and you're gonna do stuff, I don't care if you're 14. I don't care if you're a 14-year-old girl. If you're gonna do this, you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Yep. And we put a quarter of that elk on her back, and literally was loaded down with almost her body weight. And she starts hiking out with us, and like the three of us grown men are struggling right in the snow and stuff. And she finally looks at me and she goes, "Dad, I'm kind of tired of waiting on you three. Can I just go back to the truck?" And I'm like, and we're in grizzly bear country. Like there's grizzlies, and she's got fresh meat on her back. And I'm like, "All right, kid, like you got your bear spray. If you want to go. Just be careful. Make sure that if you see a bear, get your bear spray out and yell and go for it." But she's tough as nails, dude. My oldest is tougher than most grown men. So
Yeah, well, we'll pray for her future husband. He's gonna have to be a stud, man.
yeah, that's the plan.
That's awesome. So we're in ministry. We're planting. I understand this. I get this. It will chew you up and spit you out. Ministry is incredible, but it has this ability to bring things to the surface that need to be dealt with. And I know that speaking from experience. So things start happening. You have to step away from the church. Your previous wife goes through a mental breakdown. Also, I mean, I think something that's huge in that story too is, man, somebody in the church abused her when she was younger. And when we don't deal with things like that and we don't process those, man, it just creates a snowball effect later. And so this is why we stand for truth, and we deal with that because, man, we believe God's called her to live in freedom too.
Absolutely.
And so I don't want to, just skate by that. But then you're stuck raising two little girls, 6 and 8. I mean, you're coming up on some really crucial years right there in that season. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old right now. And so, man, their bodies are about to start changing, and it's just, that's a critical time. You're learning how to be Mr. Mom while trying to just stay afloat, and then God blesses you with an incredible woman. So now you have a blended family, and then you go start a business that I think is really cool, and I've had the pleasure of watching it, firsthand. I got to go out there and see what you're actually doing. Man, let's talk about that. Like, how did you end up there doing what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, so it's kind of a crazy thing. In Livingston, where we are, it's like everywhere, but I think it's a little bit magnified in the area that we're in. Housing is a huge issue. Housing is a big problem. The median average price of a home right now in the Livingston Bozeman area is over $900,000.
It's crazy.
For just the average.
Affordable housing is Well,
Yeah. There is no such thing of that. I mean, starter homes right now that are like bare bones, $400,000-$500,000 easy. And the reality, and what's happening is people are coming in from California, people are coming in from Oregon that are coming with money. We don't have any sort of infrastructure in our community that can support prices like that, but they've driven up. The TV show Yellowstone has not been helpful to our area. People think that they're
yeah,
going to,
you're really close to Yellowstone, right?
yeah,
What are
yep.
you, like an hour, hour and a half, isn't it?
Yeah, we're about 45 minutes
45 minutes,
from
yeah.
Yellowstone. So beautiful area, right at the mouth of Paradise Valley. It's a
Absolutely is.
yeah, it's amazing place. But actually, my buddy Rick, who you've met and hung out
Love that
with,
guy.
yeah, Rick's a beast. But Rick and I have been friends for about 15 years now, and we've always wanted to do some sort of a business together. Rick's a real strong believer as well. He was a preacher's kid. But we've done all sorts of backcountry stuff together. We do a lot of hunts and stuff, a lot of adventures. And we were actually on a bear hunt about 3 years, almost exactly 3 years ago. And we were talking about some different business opportunities and things. And I've had this idea of like, let's build some tiny homes. Like, let's just see what happens. And both of us were like, well, neither one of us have ever built a tiny home before. We've never even stood in one. We've seen the TV shows, but it's like, let's give it a shot. So I shot a bear that night, which is a fun part of the story too. So
Awesome part of the
yeah,
story.
yeah, not too far from where we hiked with Keith, where he almost died. But anyway, we went back and started doing some research, and we built a tiny home. And it took us, probably 9 months, like nights and weekends, just to see if they would sell, see if there was a market there. And man, there is. And we actually sold the first one before we ever finished it. We were building it on spec with cash and sold it before it was built, and then immediately got more orders. And here we are 3 years later, and we've got. I mean, I might have sold one this morning. I mean, I get calls on the daily. We're working with several large developers. We're actually working with Yellowstone National Park. We're working with other places to provide housing for folks, also provide workforce housing, an attainable housing option for people.
It's incredible, man, how God's just breathed on it.
Yeah.
It's Woodland Ridge Tiny Homes.
Yep.
Right?
Woodland Ridge Tiny Home Crafters. We're on all the socials if anybody wants to go check it out.
I think you do a great job too, kind of talking through your builds with them too, showing them around. And I've walked in them, a couple of them. Dude, the detail, like, and that's kind of your forte too, man,
Yep.
is like just they're really beautiful.
Thank you.
And I think we should I'll have the guys plug the website in
Okay.
there on this so people could check it out. I'm really impressed, man, with what you do. And so out of ministry, but still loving God, restored, like God's done something inside of you through all of this. It's just been incredible. You got an incredible family now, got super solid friends. You start this business just on a whim. It's like, okay, should we do this? And you go after it, and God just starts breathing on it and blessing it. And now you're at a great place where you're just starting to expand and grow.
Yeah, we actually June 1st we go to a new shop. Our shop has been my old barn that we converted into
I've
into
seen
a
it.
shop.
It
Yep.
actually is.
And so we can only build one at a time now. But June 1st we go to a shop where we're going to be able to quadruple our production capacity, and we're going to go from building 10 or 12 a year to our goal is to be able to build 40 a year, is our goal, and we should be able to get there, hopefully within the next year or so.
Which is incredible. So you're also adding jobs
Yep.
to the community as well.
Well, and it's been great because I'm not necessarily in vocational ministry anymore at this point.
Sure.
I'm still in ministry,
No doubt.
and God has given me opportunities to just continue to minister to people, whether it's through being a pastor or whether it's through being a business owner where I build tiny homes. There's ministry opportunities and all of that.
I mean, I think about Romans 11:29, for the gifts and calls of God are irrevocable. Bro, you have a shepherd's heart. You're still shepherding people, and uh, and And I love that because you're doing it in a way that is unique and different. You're not you're not filling up pews, but you're meeting people where they are and you're loving on them and encouraging them. I mean, I also had a couple days in the woods with you out there too, and you like Keith and I even talked about that. You could still tell like that shepherd, like you teach, and you celebrate and you teach, and I could I could see spending a day in the woods with your daughter too. I was like, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
He spent some time with
Yep.
her,
Absolutely.
you know.
Well, it's the so whenever I was going through the like the divorce process. I actually had a pastor friend of mine, and I use friend loosely there, that came to me and looked at me and he said, not knowing the whole situation, like not knowing what was fully going on, he looks at and his words still ring in my ears at times whenever I'm vulnerable, even to this day. He looked at me and said, "If you get a divorce from your wife, God will never use you again."
Yeah, he's an idiot.
He is an idiot,
Yeah.
and and that's what's.
I just wanted to say that publicly.
Yep.
In case he listens.
Oh, I hope he does. But you know what? In the moment, whenever that was said to me, I was in such a raw, fragile place. Like those words destroyed me in that moment. And even now, as I look back on it, nearly 10 years ago, there's times whenever I'm vulnerable now, or struggling or whatever, those words are still, you know, hard to hear, and Satan really uses that against me at times. But what I would venture to say is post divorce, God's actually used me to minister to people far in a far better, deeper way than he did whenever I was pre-divorce and pastoring a church.
No doubt. No doubt, man. I mean, you've been through a test. So you have an incredible testimony. And one of the things, I mean, divorce and what you've went through is crazy unfortunate. It's difficult. It's heavy. But one of the beauties of that is you have to rely on God, literally to
Absolutely.
sustain you every day,
Yep.
just to live and just to make it. I can imagine there's probably some situational depression that you were battling there and
Yep.
feeling overwhelmed. I mean, the beautiful thing in the middle of that valley is that, man, you have to go all in with God.
Yep.
Like it's just that's how it is, man. Been there, been in some situations where I felt that before. It's like, God, if you don't show up, like I don't know, but you got to show up, and I gotta trust you to take another step. I gotta trust you just to function today. I remember in 2015, I wore myself flat out, getting ahead of myself with Bold City Church and just you know, running the rat race, meeting with everyone else's family, not Sabbathing, not taking care of myself. Well, dude, I was tapped out. I was done. I was overwhelmed, depressed, crazy, anxiety attacks. I was burnt out, is what it was. And I remember one of the elders at the time came to me, and his initial reaction was like, "Dude, what is it? Like, what's the major sin in your life? Are you watching porn? Are you cheating on your wife?" And it was like, "Dude, I'm not doing any of that." Was there a major sin? Absolutely. I couldn't identify it then. It was not honoring the Sabbath. I wasn't resting. I was ahead of God. I was trying to build his church when he said he would do that, you know? And I was comparing myself to everyone else and I just felt crazy overwhelmed. And I just remember when he said that, it was like the voice of the accuser. It reminded me of the dude I used to be, pre-Jesus. And it was like, dude, is that like that's the first place we go is man, I'm watching porn and cheating on my wife.
Right.
And it was not the case at all. I was burnt out. I
Yep.
was tired, didn't have boundaries and was working myself in the ground. But I even when I repeat those words right now, I still feel them because it was someone I held in high esteem and valued greatly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because even to this day, there's people that in our community that have accused me of cheating, that have accused me of stuff. It's like, nope, nope, that's not what happened. Because the rumor mill. I mean, we're in a
Sure,
small
sure.
town, rumor mill. Something like that must have happened. No, no, it didn't. I just wasn't prioritizing my family like I should have been. And if anything, the church was my mistress,
Yep.
right? Which it sounds like that was some of the same stuff for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys get into that, you know, get very driven and do that. Heavy stuff, like
Absolutely.
good stuff though. But God's blessed you, and because you stayed with him even in the middle of the mess. You didn't deconstruct. You didn't run for the hills. You just walked through the valley with him, man.
Oh, I
And
wanted to though.
oh, no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about just staying in the foxhole with Jesus. Just stay there and don't give up even when it gets hard.
Yeah, well, my buddy Rick, whenever I was going through the middle of a lot of this stuff, and Rick's quite a bit older than I am, and he's got a lot of wisdom along with that. And he looked at me and he said, most people want to get out from underneath pressure. They
Yeah.
want to get out from underneath these hard times. And the thing that he kept telling me whenever it was dark, whenever it was tough, he said, just be in it. Just be in it and get from it what you need to get from it. And don't run from it. Just face it and let God work on your life.
It's truth, man. That's truth. I appreciate him. He's a good
Mhm.
man. He's a good man. Well, let's wrap up with two major things. These are important to talk about too. Your favorite hobby, and then your family now. I love to kind of close out because I believe you and your wife have an incredible marriage, and God's really blessed you guys, blended family, and
Yeah.
doing some cool things. But let's talk about the hobby and hunting. Um, what's your favorite animal to hunt?
Oh, easy. Easy. Elk in the rut with my bow. That's the I got to get you out there to experience that. It's amazing. You have an 800-pound animal bugling his head off with this huge set of antlers that you're calling in, like he is coming in to fight you, and then you slip an arrow through his rib cage. It's amazing.
Sorry
It,
for all you that are into hunting.
yeah, it's amazing. We do, and we don't hunt the same way folks do around here out of tree stands and stuff. We're on the ground, we're hiking, we're moving. I mean, it's nothing for us to do, 10 to 15 miles in a day. That's a pretty normal day for us. We train year round for it physically to be able to do that. And then like Rick and I will go, 10 days in the mountains. So we've got llamas, we got pack llamas, which are
Yeah,
pretty cool. So the llamas will pack a lot of our tent and food and gear and stuff. And then,
that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, and then we'll go for 10 days where we don't come out of the mountains, and man, we come out smelling ripe, but we have a blast. And
Bet your wife loves that.
oh yeah, she won't even talk to me until I go take a shower. So but yeah, it's one of those things too where I mean the connection that we end up with having with God during that time, and then the things that
No doubt.
we've learned and stuff. It's amazing.
Dude, I think I love it, man, because I didn't grow up hunting. I grew up skateboarding, playing sports, and making trouble, but I didn't grow up hunting. And as I was maturing and getting older, I was like, man, I have to do something to kind of quench that competitive edge.
Yep.
So I was like, man, let's try to learn how to do this. And so here I am trying to learn how to do that. And I get a lot of invites to do it here. I'm not even, and I'm not trying to be snooty or anything. I'm just not into it.
Hmm.
And the reason why is because I don't feel like you have to work that hard here.
Right.
But when I go somewhere with you, like, dude, it's going to tell the truth about if you've worked and prepared for that
Mhm.
moment or not. And something about being on the ground and pursuing something instead of sitting somewhere and just putting some feeders. I'm not calling you guys cheaters for those of you who do it.
Oh,
Please don't.
I'll call them cheaters though.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going back to Montana tomorrow, so I can do that.
Yeah, so I'm not baiting, but like we're actually out on the ground, and there's something to be said about going after something that if you don't get it, it's gonna get you.
Yeah, well, let me tell you one quick story, and this is probably my favorite hunting story of all time. So the very first black bear that I harvested, I was with my buddy Rick and another buddy Keith, and at this point we took the horses in. Actually, this is a spot where I'm hoping to take you at some point. We go in, we're about 10 miles in on horseback, but we didn't bring a pack horse. We just brought saddle horses. We weren't spending the night. It was just going to be ride in, hunt, ride out that night. So we were sitting up on this hillside, and we've been sitting there glassing. We've seen some bears, but they've been like on other mountains, and we couldn't get to them before dark. And then about 600 yards out in front of me, out pops a bear, and I'm like, I'm going after this guy. So I take off on foot, walking to him. There's a patch of trees. I'm in the trees, lose sight of where the bear is, and then I'm thinking he's kind of over to my left. I'm looking over there pretty intently, and then I hear a branch snap to my right, and I look over, and there's this black bear at like 25 yards. And there's so much deadfall in trees, I can't get a shot on him. He kind of comes towards us. He sees me. He's kind of doing this number, looking at me, and just keeps walking. He's just coming right to me, and then he steps around a tree. As soon as he steps around the tree, I throw my rifle up, harvest him. Well, bears don't die very quickly necessarily, and he actually charged me, and he got as close as me to you, and I'm trying to get another shell in the gun, and then he turns and runs off, like literally at my feet.
Wow.
Follow him, find him. He's still not quite dead yet. Had to put another round through him. So that in and of itself was intense, right? Well, now we're 10 miles in, and it's dark. So we get
Pitch black dark.
pitch black
No
dark.
street lights.
No street lights whatsoever. No moon that night. And literally we cut the bear up, and I jump on my horse. My buddies take the bear and put the bear over top of my lap, and I'm literally holding the bear. I'm holding the saddle horn and holding the bear on my lap. And we're riding out in the pitch black dark in grizzly country with a dead bear on me and the horse. I can't see anything.
No headlight, nothing.
Nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Literally, I'm in the lead. I just give the horse his head and just let the horse walk out. And it was one of the biggest examples of faith that I've ever had, because it was so dark, Jason. I could look down and see sparks coming off of the horse's shoes on the rocks as we were walking. It was so dark. And we didn't get out. We didn't get out of the woods till 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And this whole way with a bear across my lap. I mean, it's one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had that I never want to have again. It was terrifying.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you love to bear hunt, elk hunt, and mule deer?
Yeah, I mean,
A little bit.
yeah, if I've already harvested an elk or and a bear, I'm maybe go look for a mule deer, but elk and bear are my thing.
Yeah. Pronghorn antelope.
Yeah, I shoot those off my deck. So we have antelope that come through our yard, and whenever I draw a tag, I'll just literally the last 3 I've harvested have been off my deck.
That's pretty
So,
awesome, man.
yeah.
So that's your hobby. But the beauty is it's not just hunting, like you just said it earlier. You spend year round preparing for that, because you're not just going to a tree stand and sitting down and reading a book. Like you're there.
Yep.
And I want to add this too. You are disconnected.
Yep.
Like there ain't no calling your wife. Like you are back there. I mean, it's just you, a friend, and Jesus, man.
Yep. Well, and I tell people always that after 3 days of that, there's something that changes inside of you. After 3 days, because I've done short trips, I've done long trips. There's something that changes after 3 days of being in there.
I say the same thing about a 3-day fast. Like fast for a day, cool, but after 3 days of fasting, like you can sense a real shift in your spirit.
Yep.
That's pretty funny that you said that. After 3 days, the tomb was empty, baby. So
That's
let's
right.
go. So yeah. So hey, let's close out with this, man. Can you talk about blended family, what you do now to preserve your marriage and prioritize your wife?
Yeah. So Angie and I got married, and we're coming up on 6 years. 6 years ago, and she's got 3 kids herself, and then I've got 2. Her kids are 2 of them are already out of the house, married, and it's been cool because I've been a part of all of that. So I actually did the wedding ceremonies for both the older kids, which was
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a huge honor, and just her kids have been just a huge blessing in my life as well, and the way her family has just accepted me and the girls into their lives. I mean, it's like we've been there the whole time, which has been just so wonderful for us, for the 3 of us. And then and then now, man, having a wife that is is just supportive of everything. Every crazy idea I have, she's like, okay, let's do that. It's been really incredible. And you know, the priorities for me are so different than they used to be. I love what you said about the 777 thing. I've not heard that before. But we try and do that. At, not necessarily on that type of a schedule, but we try, weekly, we carve out time. Almost every day we try and carve out at least an hour or so.
Which is awesome. You're making an investment, man.
Yep. And it's easier now because our kids are older. I mean, our youngest is almost 15 now. So the kids are a little bit more self-sustaining, and, we can actually close the door and just be the two of us, even if, we got a house full of kids.
Sure.
We can segregate that
I don't
time.
know what that's like now. I wake up and they're all in bed with us, like
Yeah.
all over us. I had a 17-month-old or 18-month-old foot in my face this morning at 5:30. And I didn't even move it either. I got to be honest. I just
Just
pet
left
it.
it
I
there.
just pet it. It's like, she's cute.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, the priorities are different. In some ways, the hunting's actually getting harder, because I hate to be away from home. It's
That's
that
awesome.
it's that struggle between doing something I really enjoy doing, but then also being there with my family, every moment that I can. So yeah, it's this go around is a lot different.
Yeah.
In a good way. I mean, God, I've owned all the things that I did wrong the first time, and tried to learn from them, and tried to be and I fail every day, but my goal is to be the best husband and father that I can be for the wife and kids that I have.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
And I think your wife would agree. And your Brady Bunch would as well. And
Yeah.
I think you're an incredible friend.
Thank you.
Man, and I want to say thanks for just taking the time to come hang out and share some of your story. And I feel like we need to do it again. And I feel like we should probably go do it in the woods
I
sometime too.
I think we should too, man. There's so many. It's amazing having you come out. I love it. I love whenever people come out and I get to show them a little bit of my world. I love that. I love every time you've been able to come out.
Yeah, us Flatlanders down here, we need to go see
Yep.
some of that mountain country. It's beautiful,
Yep.
man. Well, I'd love to have you just pray for people who maybe listen to your story today, and we'll close out with that. You cool with it?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for how you have this amazing ability just to take our stories and weave them in a way that we don't understand it in the moment. We don't understand why things are going on, why certain things are happening, but in the end, you're weaving together this amazing story.
Yes.
And Father, I pray that as people that have listened today, that I just pray that they be encouraged, that no matter what someone may be going through, no matter what they've been trying to do, trying to accomplish, haven't accomplished, that you just show where you're at work in their life, even if it doesn't make sense. Because I know that, in the things that I've been through, that you've helped me through. There's been so many times where I've been lost as to what to do or why things were happening. But in the end, that scripture in Proverbs that you will restore the years that the locusts have eaten. And Father, I pray for all those out there today that are struggling. Father, I just pray that you will encourage them, that you will give them strength just to keep putting one foot in front of the other, even whenever it's hard, even whenever it's difficult. And Father, I pray for Jason and Tiffany and their family as they lead Bold City Church. I just pray that you will continue to pour yourself out on this community and in ways that we can't even imagine at this point, in ways that will shock us as we look back. Father, I pray that the community here in the Ocean Way, North Jacksonville area, I just pray that this community will be radically changed because of the ministry of Bold City Church. And Father, we thank you just for how you are always there to wrap your arms around us, no matter what. And I thank you for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bold City Podcast. To learn more about us, visit us at boldcity.church or download the Bold City Church app. To support this ministry and help us continue to reach people all around the world, visit boldcity.church/give.